I'm Kathy with the Delafield Quilt Company, and we are on block number 6 of the 2025 Summer Sew-Along. If you're interested in sewing along, all of the information for the sew-along can be found on our website at delafieldquiltco.com, and on there you'll find all of the patterns, information, timeline, and even a coloring sheet so that you can plan out your quilt project. Alright, so block number 6 actually need 8 total of these. And here's where those 8 are. Now this is a very simple block to sew, so hopefully it'll go pretty quick for you. And for the cutting requirements, you just need 8 3.5-inch squares of your background fabric, 1 3.5-inch square of fabric 2, which I'm using rust for this one, and then 4 2-inch squares of the rust color. Alright, so I've already got all of my pieces cut here. Now I'm just ready to get started. And I am going to need a ruler and a pencil. And I'm just going to start by drawing a diagonal line down the center of all the 2-inch squares. And you do want to draw this on the wrong side of the fabric. And you do want to use a fabric-friendly pen or a pencil. When I'm drawing my lines, I do like to use the 45-degree mark on the ruler. And I start my ruler just slightly below the top and bottom corners just to allow for the thickness of my writing utensil. Alright, now that I've got my lines drawn, I'm just ready to sew some pieces on here. And I'm going to grab 4 of my 3.5-inch squares, and I'm going to place on each of those one of those 2-inch squares that I just drew a line on. And I do want to line this up in the bottom left corner. And I'm making sure that the 2 corner sides of that bottom there line up really nicely for both of the pieces. So one little trick for this block is I could actually do this without drawing the lines because I do have some diagonal seam tape. If you haven't heard of that before, it's a really convenient tape when you're doing a lot of half square triangle type work, because basically you just line your piece up using the middle line of that diagonal tape, and you want to make sure that that tape is aligned with the middle point of your needle, and then it makes it really easy for just sewing diagonally down the back of squares. But if you don't have that tape, no problem, that's why we draw a line on the back. And then I'm just going to go ahead and sew right on that line that we drew earlier. And I'm going to repeat that for all of those pieces. Okay, now that I've got those sewn, I'm just going to cut them apart, and then I am going to trim 1/4 inch from the sewing line, and I want to make sure that I am trimming on the side of the sewing line that is towards the corner, not the one towards the main part of the square, because otherwise I'm going to cut my piece apart. Then I'm just going to press towards the little triangle. So that's pretty much the major part of the sewing of this block, and now we are ready to assemble it. So I'm just going to make my 9 patch here, and now I'm ready to sew by rows, and then I'm going to sew the rows together. And I do want to make sure that I am using a scant 1/4 inch when I'm sewing these pieces together. Okay, now that I've got my rows done, I did press the seams so that each row goes the opposite direction from the one it's going to get sewn to. And then I want to very carefully line up those seams, and I do like to put a pin right in the seam. Alright, and this is the finished block, block number 6, and it should measure 9.5 inches square. I hope that you like this video, and if you're sewing along and taking pictures, don't forget to tag Delafield Quilt Company. I would just love to see how your progress is going on this 2025 Summer Sew-Along. And thank you again for watching. If you haven't yet, please subscribe.